I wasn't supposed to be home that early. In fact, no one in my entire household expected me before 9 p.m. on that Thursday. Every Thursday, without fail, I stayed late at the office. My board knew it. My employees knew it. My household staff knew it. My ex-wife definitely knew it. And maybe that was the problem. When your life becomes predictable, people start acting like you're not really there, like you're just a schedule, an event that happens on repeat. But that day, something inside me cracked, and for the first time in years, I turned the car onto my street 3 hours ahead of time. I remember the exact moment it happened. I was sitting in a conference room overlooking downtown Phoenix, listening to a group of executives argue about projections for the next quarter. Everyone was talking, but no one was saying anything real. My phone buzzed, some meaningless notification, and I suddenly felt this overwhelming emptiness. A quiet thought whispered inside me, almost like a voice that had been waiting for years. Go home. Now. It didn't feel like intuition. It felt like clarity I couldn't ignore. So I stood up, walked out in the middle of the meeting, ignored the confused stares, took the elevator down and drove straight home. No texts, no calls, nothing. When I pulled into the driveway of my house in Scottsdale, everything looked normal. Too normal. The desert sunset painted the sky in soft orange light, the kind that always reminded me of childhood evenings with my dad. Before life got complicated, before money turned everything into a negotiation. I turned off the engine and just sat there for a second, feeling the silence settle around me. Then I clicked the remote to open the garage door. That was the first moment I realized something was off. The house was quiet, and I mean unnaturally quiet. With 3 toddlers, my 3-year-old triplets, silence isn't just rare, it's suspicious. I stepped inside through the mudroom, closing the door gently behind me. Normally, one of the nannies would be humming along to cartoons, or one of the babies would be crying, or toys would be clattering across the hardwood floor. But instead, nothing. Just the low hum of the air conditioning. I walked further in, loosening my tie, listening. Still nothing. Something in my chest tightened. "Hello?" I called out, but quietly. Almost like I wasn't sure I wanted an answer. No response. I moved through the hallway, past the framed photos of the triplets, little smiling faces, sticky fingers, eyes full of wonder, and that's when I heard it. A small sound. Not crying. More like a stifled sob. I froze. It was coming from the living room. My pulse jumped. For a second, I thought someone had broken in. I took a step closer, slow, careful, then another. When I turned the corner, the scene hit me so hard my breath caught in my throat. Marisol, the newest maid I had hired only 2 months ago, was sitting on the floor, holding all 3 of my children against her chest. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. Hard. One of the babies, Noah, had his little arms wrapped around her neck. The other 2 were pressed into her lap, their faces buried against her shirt as if they were terrified of something. And she was whispering, "It's okay. I've got you. I've got you." Over and over, her voice breaking. For a moment, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Why were they clinging to her like that? Why was she crying? Why was the house so silent? Where were the other caregivers? And then something else hit me like a punch. Noah, my smallest triplet, had a faint bruise on the side of his cheek. A fresh one. My stomach dropped so fast I almost lost my balance. "What? What is going on here?" I said, my voice sounding strangled even to my own ears. Marisol jolted, startled, her eyes wide and terrified when she saw me. She tightened her hold on the children like she was afraid I was going to rip them away from her. "Mr. Cole," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're home. Early." I stepped into the room, slow, careful, every sense on high alert. Why are they crying? And what happened to his face? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Tears kept streaming down her cheeks. She shook her head like she didn't know how to explain it, like she was terrified of saying the wrong thing. I felt heat rising in my chest. Fear, anger, confusion all tangled together. "I'm asking you a question," I said, not yelling but firm, too firm. "What happened to my son?" She swallowed hard, clutching the babies even tighter. The triplets were so attached to her, their tiny fingers gripping her shirt like she was the only safe place in the world. I didn't mean," she started but then choked on her own words. "You didn't mean what?" I snapped, taking another step closer. "Tell me what happened." "I tried to protect them," she whispered, voice cracking. "I swear to you I tried." Those words froze me. Tried to protect them. From what? From who? Before I could ask again, little Noah lifted his face toward me, eyes red, cheeks wet. He reached out a trembling hand, not to be picked up, but to show me something. His small fingers pointed toward the staircase. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What happened upstairs?" I demanded. But before she could answer, Marisol broke down completely. Her head dropped, her shoulders shaking violently as she cried into the children's hair. And that was when I realized something I never expected. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid for them. And whatever she was afraid of was still inside my house. I didn't remember moving, but suddenly I was halfway across the room. "Stay here," I said automatically, though I wasn't even sure who I was ordering, her or the triplets or myself. "Don't let them out of your sight." "I haven't," she whispered. Not for a second. There was something desperate in her voice that made me hesitate, but my attention was already pulled toward the staircase like a magnet. That tiny finger pointing up, that bruise on Noah's cheek, the silence in a house that was never, ever silent. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Halfway up, I felt that eerie stillness again, like the air was holding its breath. The hallway light was on, but the door to the nursery was half closed, hanging there like a question. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as I pushed it open. The room looked wrong. The blinds were crooked, one of them bent like someone had yanked it hard. One of the cribs was slightly moved from its usual place, just enough for me to notice because I pay attention to details. A soft toy lay on the floor near the changing table, its ear torn, stuffing peeking out. The baby monitor camera that should have been fixed toward the crib was twisted to face the wall. My stomach twisted. I walked in slowly, scanning everything like I was at a crime scene. My company built financial systems that could track a missing dollar across a dozen shell accounts. But when it came to my own house, my own children, I hadn't even noticed that the camera had been moved. I ran a hand through my hair and let out a shaky breath. "Okay," I murmured to myself. "Think. Don't react. Think." On the floor near the window, I noticed something else. A small, dark smudge on the baseboard. I knelt down, touched it with my fingertip, then wiped it off with my thumb and stared. It was faint, but I knew what it was. Dried blood. Not much. Not enough to suggest anything catastrophic. But enough to say, something happened here. I stood up quickly, my chest burning. For a moment I thought about calling the police. But calling them for what? For a bruise? For a moved camera? For a feeling? The feeling wouldn't leave me, though. That cold, crawling awareness that I had been gone too much, trusting too much, assuming that money and hired help and legal documents were enough to keep my kids safe. I slowly walked back out of the nursery and down the hall. The door to the guest room was slightly open, too. I pushed it with 2 fingers. The bed wasn't made properly. A nightstand drawer was open, a glass on the table still half full of water. A duffel bag that didn't belong to any of my regular staff was sitting unzipped on a chair. Clothes inside, one of my daughter's small socks stuck in the zipper like it had been yanked in a rush. "Where are you?" I muttered under my breath, my jaw tightening. I headed back downstairs, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the bottom, the sound of soft sobs came back into focus. Marisol was exactly where I had left her, seated on the floor with the triplets wrapped around her like they were part of her. She was rocking slowly, rhythmically. One of the boys had his hand tangled in her hair. My daughter had her tiny fist gripping the collar of Marisol's shirt. None of them had even tried to come to me. That realization stung. "Where's everyone else?" I asked, my voice low but sharp. She lifted her head slowly, eyes red, lashes wet. "Everyone left, sir." "What do you mean everyone left?" I snapped. "The nanny? The cook? The security? How does everyone leave when there are 3 toddlers in this house?" Her mouth trembled. "The cook left at 5 like he always does. Security is outside, they didn't come in. The nanny, she walked out." "Walked out?" I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping me. "People don't just walk out of this house, not with the contracts they sign, not with the money I pay them." "She did," Marisol whispered. "She walked out. And she left them like this." I stared at her, anger and disbelief warring inside me. "You expect me to believe that the nanny just abandoned her post? Without calling me? Without calling anyone?" Marisol swallowed hard. I could see her debating something internally. What to say, what not to say. "Mr. Cole," she said, voice unsteady, "if I tell you everything, I don't know what will happen to me." Something twisted inside me at that. It wasn't just fear of losing her job. There was a deeper fear in her eyes, fear of someone else. I stepped closer, then crouched down so I was closer to their level. My kids glanced at me, but their bodies stayed glued to her. "Look at me," I said, softer now. "I'm not asking as your employer right now. I'm asking as a father. I need to know what happened to my children." Her chin quivered. She looked away, then back at me, then at the kids. "Can you take them?" she asked gently. "Just for a minute?" The triplets stiffened almost as one. I watched that tiny instinctive reaction and felt a knife go straight through me. They were afraid of letting go of her, afraid that if they did, something would happen. I extended my arms anyway, trying to sound calm. "Come here, guys, it's okay. Daddy's here." My daughter looked up at me with those big brown eyes that mirrored my own. Her lips wobbled. "Daddy?" she whispered. It broke something in me. "Yeah," I exhaled. "Yeah, baby. I'm here." Slowly, one by one, with reluctance and soft whimpers, they shifted from Marisol's lap toward me. I gathered all 3 of them the best I could. One on each side, one partly on my chest. Their little bodies were warm, shaking slightly, fingers clutching at my shirt. They smelled like baby shampoo and tears. "It's okay," I whispered, kissing the top of my daughter's head. "You're safe. You're safe." I felt their heartbeats against me, rapid and fragile. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a dark thought rose. They don't feel safe with you. Not really. They feel safe with her. I didn't say it, but I heard it. Marisol wiped her face with the back of her hand, then moved slowly to stand up. Her knees were unsteady. She looked smaller somehow. "Tell me," I said, my voice rough. "From the beginning. What happened today?" She took a deep breath, then leaned against the edge of the couch as if she needed something to hold her up. "She came late," Marisol started. "The nanny. She was supposed to be here at noon, but she didn't arrive until almost 2. She said she had been on the phone with..." She hesitated, then forced the name out. "With your ex-wife." "Of course." My jaw clenched. "She was angry when she arrived," Marisol continued. "Not at me, at everything. She was talking on her AirPods when she walked in, saying things about lawyers and custody and money. She barely looked at the children. She just went straight upstairs with her phone." "Did she say my name?" I asked. "Yes." Marisol nodded, wiping more tears away. "She said, if he wants more time with them, he can pay for it. I'm not backing down." Things like that. I closed my eyes for a second. None of it surprised me. My divorce had been a negotiation from hell, and the only reason it hadn't completely destroyed me was because I could afford the best attorneys in Arizona. My ex-wife knew exactly where to hurt me, through the kids and through any public scandal that could damage the company. "What happened after she went upstairs?" I asked. "She called for one of the boys," Marisol said, her voice shaking again. "She said she needed to change him and told me to bring him up. It was Noah. I brought him, and then she told me to take the other two back downstairs and start preparing snacks. So I did." "And how long was he upstairs with her?" Her eyes welled again. "Too long. I started to feel something was wrong. The twins were getting fussy. I didn't hear him. No crying, no laughing, no sound. After a while, I couldn't ignore it. I went upstairs, and when I opened the door..." She stopped. Her throat closed. She looked down at her hands. "What did you see?" I pressed, my voice a low growl now. She looked at me like she was bracing for judgment. "He was on the floor crying. The nanny was holding her phone, filming herself near the crib." She was talking into the camera about how hard it is to deal with spoiled, difficult kids. Noah had already fallen. He had hit his face on the side of the changing table. She didn't even pick him up until she saw me at the door. I felt my vision blur for a second. "She was filming a video?" "Yes," Marisol whispered. "For social media. She does that a lot when she thinks no one is watching." She was saying that no one respects her, that she doesn't get paid enough to deal with this, that if something happens, it's not her fault. But when she saw me, she swallowed, then continued. She grabbed him finally and said, "Look what you made this kid do. Now his father is going to freak out and call his lawyer. This is on you. You were supposed to be watching him." What? I stared at her. "She tried to blame you?" "Yes, sir," she said, her eyes shining with humiliation. "She said if I didn't want trouble, I would say he fell when I was alone with them. She said your ex-wife would believe her, not me. That if I caused any problems, I'd be out on the street by the end of the day." My fingers tightened instinctively around the kids. They stirred slightly, then settled back down against me. My chest ached. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. She gave a small, broken laugh. "Mr. Cole, people like me, we learn early that no one believes us over people with power. She kept saying your ex-wife was going to make a call, and that I'd be gone. She said she could convince you of anything, that she always had. I didn't want to lose this job. I send everything I earned to my son back in Texas. I can't risk him losing his home because I spoke up." The room felt smaller, hotter. "So what did you do?" I asked quietly. "I took the babies downstairs," she said. I cleaned up his face, held ice to it. He kept clinging to me, shaking. The other two started crying too, like they knew something was wrong. "I was going to call you anyway. I promised myself I would. But before I could..." She looked up at me, eyes wide. "Your ex-wife called. She asked to speak to the nanny. They talked for a few minutes in the kitchen where I couldn't hear much. When they came back, the nanny had her bag. She looked at me and said, 'You're fired. Start packing your things. If Mr. Cole asks, you drop the baby. And if you ever try to say otherwise, we'll show him the video and say you're lying.' Then she just walked out." I blinked slowly. "Hold on. She said she had a video?" "Yes." "A video of what exactly?" "Of the room right after it happened. Of her saying it was my fault, of him crying. Enough to twist the story if she wanted to." Her voice dropped. "But she doesn't know I recorded something too." My heartbeat kicked hard against my ribs. "You recorded something?" She nodded, tears escaping again. I was scared. I thought, if they try to blame me, I need something. So when I went back upstairs while she was still talking to herself on camera, I turned my phone on too. I recorded her. Not all of it, but enough. A tiny spark lit somewhere inside me. "Do you still have that recording?" I asked, my tone sharp, hungry now. Yes, sir, she whispered. I was going to delete it. I was terrified they would find it, but I couldn't. I thought of your kids. I thought of how easily people like us are erased, and I kept it. For a long moment, the only sounds in the room were the soft breathing of the triplets and the distant hum of the air conditioner. I looked at her, really looked at her. A woman with tired eyes and strong hands. A woman who had just risked everything by telling me this. A woman who, instead of leaving when everything went wrong, had stayed on the floor, clutching my children, crying with them. Marisol, I said softly, I need to see that recording. She hesitated, fear flickering again. If I show you, am I safe? The question cut straight through whatever anger I had left. It was a fair one. I took a deep breath, then answered slowly, carefully, choosing my words not as a CEO but as a man who had once sworn to protect his children and failed more times than he wanted to admit. If what you're saying is true, I said, you're safer with me than with anyone else in this story. And I'm not just talking about your job. She searched my face as if trying to decide whether to trust that, whether to trust me. Finally, she nodded, wiped her cheeks, and reached into the pocket of her apron. I'll show you, she whispered. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, Mr. Cole. I tightened my hold on my kids, feeling the weight of their bodies, the warmth of their skin, the unspoken trust they hadn't given me easily, but had given her. Good, I thought. Maybe it was time I finally saw what had been happening in my own house while I was busy building empires somewhere else. Marisol's hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. The screen lit up her face, highlighting the fear etched into every line. She hesitated before unlocking it, her thumb hovering over the screen like she was afraid of what would happen the moment the truth became real. Are you sure? She whispered. Yes, I said. Show me. She took a deep breath and tapped the video. The first few seconds were shaky, the camera pointed at the carpet. Then the screen lifted, and everything inside me turned cold. The video showed the nursery, my nursery, except it didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt like some dark, unfamiliar place where I'd lost control without realizing it. The nanny was in the frame, holding her phone in selfie mode, her hair perfect, her expression exaggerated, like she was performing. And honestly, she was saying, voice dripping with annoyance, I don't get paid enough for this. His kids are wild, totally untrained. It's like no one ever taught them how to behave. She flipped the camera to show Noah crying on the floor, one hand on his cheek. He was trembling. Actually trembling. I felt my jaw tighten so hard it hurt. Marisol glanced at me anxiously, but I kept watching. The nanny crouched near him, not to comfort him, but to show the bruise on his face to her camera. See, she said, this is what I deal with, all day. But when something goes wrong, guess what? They blame me, always me. She rolled her eyes dramatically and picked up the baby monitor camera, turning it completely toward the wall. Let's not give the billionaire his daily meltdown, right? If he wants to think everything is perfect, fine. I'll help him think that. My stomach twisted. Then the video shook again. The angle changed. Marisol whispered behind the camera, her voice cracking. Noah, baby, are you okay? The nanny turned sharply, her expression shifting. First surprise, then panic, then anger. What are you doing here? She snapped. You left him on the floor, Marisol said softly. He's hurt. No, you left him, the nanny hissed. And if you don't want trouble, you'll stick to that story. The tension in the video was suffocating. I could practically feel the fear in the room. Pick him up, Marisol said gently, walking toward the child. The nanny shoved her hand into the frame, blocking Marisol. No, don't touch him. If you touch him, it's on you. This is your fault. And if his father asks, you better cry on command. For a second, the entire world inside that video froze. Then Noah's tiny voice broke the moment. Ma, he cried, reaching both hands up toward the camera, not toward the nanny, toward Marisol. And she whispered back, "I'm here. I'm here, baby. Give me 1 second." But the nanny grabbed his arm, roughly, carelessly, and yanked him toward her phone like he was a prop. The video ended abruptly. I didn't realize my hands were shaking until I felt my daughter's small fingers curl around my wrist, grounding me. I had been holding the triplets close while watching the video, and now their bodies were pressed so hard into me, it was like they sensed the storm inside my chest. I tried speaking, but my voice didn't work at first. When it finally came, it was low, controlled. Too controlled. Why didn't she call me? Marisol looked down. She said, your ex-wife told her not to. She said your ex-wife promised she would handle everything and keep the money flowing. I felt a tremor go through me. Money, I repeated slowly. This was about money. Marisol nodded weakly. She said your ex-wife promised her a bonus if she followed instructions, but she didn't know I heard that part. I closed my eyes. Of course. My ex-wife hated that I had primary custody. She hated that my lawyers had managed to convince the judge I could offer more stability. She hated the idea that I was finally seen as a present father instead of a walking checkbook. And she hated even more that the public sympathy had shifted away from her when the details of the divorce came out. She wanted something to happen, I said quietly. Something she could use. Yes, sir, Marisol whispered. I think she did. The weight of the truth pressed down on me like a collapsing ceiling. All the years of building a company, all the money I shoveled into legal battles, all the routines and systems and schedules. And still, danger had walked right through the front door. Still, the people closest to my children had been selected, not by their qualifications, but by manipulation. I felt a sudden shame thread through me. What happened after she left? I asked. Marisol wiped her nose with the back of her hand, exhaustion evident in her posture. She told me I was fired, grabbed her bag, and ran out. Your ex-wife called again, but I didn't answer. The babies were crying so hard. They wouldn't calm down. I tried everything. Snacks, milk, toys, nothing worked. She paused, her voice trembling. So I sat on the floor and held them, all three. I just held them. They stopped crying after a while, but then... She swallowed hard. I started crying too. My throat tightened. Why? I whispered. She hesitated. Then, in a voice so soft it barely existed, she said, because I realized they were scared of being left again. The words hit me like a punch. I felt each of my children's breaths against me, small, uneven, trembling. And I knew she was right. Not just about today, about everything. I had given them the best house, the best toys, the best staff, but not enough of myself. And now they were clinging to a woman who had known them for only 8 weeks because she was the only one who had protected them when it mattered. I shifted slightly, trying to steady my voice. Marisol, I need you to tell me something honestly. Do you think this was an isolated incident, or has that nanny hurt them before? Her eyes filled again, slowly, painfully. I don't know, she whispered. But I think they've been afraid for a long time. Noah whimpered softly on my chest, and I held him closer. My daughter rubbed her cheek into my shirt. My other son let out a shaky breath. I pressed a kiss into each of their heads. A silent apology. I need to confront her, I said quietly. And my ex-wife. Marisol stiffened. Mr. Cole, please be careful. She told the nanny she was ready to destroy you in court if you made things difficult. She said she has people who owe her favors. Her exact words were, he still thinks he's in control, but he never is. I felt something shift inside me then. Not anger, not fear, but clarity. A sharp, unwavering clarity I hadn't felt in years. She's been manipulating everything, I said, and she thinks I'm too busy to see it. Marisol wiped her cheek again. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure. You did the right thing, I said firmly. The only right thing. She looked at me for a long, quiet moment. Then her voice cracked again. I didn't do it for me. I did it for them. I exhaled, chest tight. I know. But she shook her head, more tears falling. No, Mr. Cole, you don't understand. Her next words shattered me. I did it because I lost a baby once. And when I saw your little boy on the floor, hurt, crying, I couldn't let that happen again. Not to anyone's child. I felt suddenly weightless, like the ground beneath me had dropped a few inches. What? I whispered. She pressed a hand to her chest, fighting to breathe through the emotion. I don't talk about it. I don't tell anyone. But he was only 2, and I wasn't there in time. I wasn't fast enough. And when I saw Noah today, I saw my son. Her voice broke completely. That's why I can't let anything happen to your children. Not while I'm here. I stared at her, stunned into silence. Not by the tragedy, but by the strength of someone who carried that kind of pain, and still found the courage to protect. My children clung to me tighter as if they somehow understood the weight of her words. I swallowed hard. Marisol, thank you. She shook her head again. Don't thank me yet, because once you confront them, everything will change. People like your ex-wife, they don't accept defeat quietly. I felt a slow, determined fire start in my chest. I don't need her to accept anything, I said. I just need the truth. I shifted the kids gently onto the couch so they could stay close while I stood. Then I reached out a hand to Marisol. Come on, I said. We're going to finish this. Her eyes widened. Where are we going? To my office, I said firmly. We're documenting everything, every detail, every timestamp, every message, every video, tonight. She hesitated. And then? I looked toward the front door, jaw set. And then, I said, I'm calling a meeting with the one person who's been playing games with my family for years. Marisol's breath caught. Your ex-wife? I nodded. Yes. Tomorrow morning, she will answer for everything. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something powerful rise inside me. I wasn't just a billionaire. I was a father who finally understood what he had to protect, and who he had to protect them from. Marisol followed me down the hallway toward my office, her steps hesitant, cautious, like each one might trigger a trap she didn't see. I could feel the weight of everything between us, the truth she had shown me, the truth I had ignored, the truth that had been happening under my roof while I buried myself in work and routines. When we reached the office, I flicked on the lights and motioned for her to sit across from me. She didn't. Instead, she stood near the doorway like she was afraid to cross some invisible boundary between employee and someone who had just saved my children. Sit, I said softly. She hesitated a second longer before lowering herself into the chair, wringing her hands in her lap. I pulled up my laptop, logged into my secure drive, activated the camera feeds, timestamps, records, every digital footprint the nanny and my ex-wife thought I wouldn't look at because I was too busy. But I wasn't busy anymore. Not tonight. Tell me everything, I said. For the next 2 hours, she talked and I documented. Every detail, every time the nanny had been late, dismissive, careless. Every time the children seemed unusually distressed after being alone with her. Every odd call my ex-wife had made at convenient times. Every subtle threat, every piece of manipulation, every red flag. At one point, Marisol's voice cracked. I didn't know if telling you would make things worse. I didn't want to be blamed. I didn't want you to lose custody because of something I said wrong. I paused my typing and looked at her. You didn't make things worse. You saved them. Her eyes glistened and she looked down again, swallowing her emotions. When we finished, I uploaded her video into the secure folder and synced it with the baby monitor logs. The timestamps lined up almost perfectly. The nanny turning the camera, the moment the cry echoed through the room, the time Marisol went upstairs. Everything was clear. Everything was undeniable. And everything pointed in one direction. I sent a single message to my attorney. Emergency. Meeting at my house tomorrow. 8 a.m. Bring custody files. Then I closed the laptop and leaned back, exhaling for what felt like the first time all day. Marisol watched me like she was waiting for a verdict. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now," I said. "We let the truth speak for itself." She nodded slowly, but her eyes were full of fear. "She's not going to take this well. Your ex-wife, she's dangerous when she feels cornered." "I know," I said quietly. "But she's not the only one with power." Marisol looked down at her hands again. "People like me don't have any." "That's where you're wrong," I said. "You have the kind of power money can't buy." Her eyes lifted to mine, uncertain. "You have honesty," I said, "integrity, courage, and right now, you're the only person in this house who put my children first." Something shifted in her expression, something vulnerable and fragile, like she wasn't used to anyone noticing her humanity at all. Before either of us could say more, a soft sound drifted down the hall. One of the triplets. I stood immediately. "Come on." We walked together to the living room where the kids had fallen asleep curled together on the couch. My daughter stirred first, rubbing her eyes, then reaching out toward Marisol, not me. Pain cut through me, but not resentment. It was truth. And now that I had seen it, I couldn't turn away from it. Marisol approached them and gently tucked a blanket around their small bodies. She brushed their hair away from their faces with a tenderness that made my chest tighten. "You should sleep," I murmured. She shook her head. "I'm okay." "You haven't rested all day," I said. She gave a weak smile. "Mothers don't rest either." The comment hit me harder than I expected. She looked at the ground. "I didn't mean—" "It's okay," I said softly. "You're right." She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, exhaustion finally took her. Her knees buckled slightly. "Sit," I said, guiding her to the opposite end of the couch. She sank into the cushions, her eyes fluttering shut almost instantly. For a moment, the room was quiet again. For the first time, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt peaceful. I sat beside my children, keeping a watchful eye on all four of them. My kids, and the woman who had protected them like they were her own. For once, I didn't check email. I didn't think about meetings. I didn't try to control anything. I simply existed with them. And I realized something I should have realized years ago. I had built my entire life trying to be indispensable to the world, my company, my board, my investors, my public image, while becoming completely replaceable in my own home. That would end tonight. Morning came fast. At 8 a.m., my attorney arrived. At 8:05, my ex-wife walked in with a smug expression that evaporated the second she saw me standing there holding a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "Sit," I said. She bristled instantly. "Don't talk to me like—" "Sit," I repeated. Something in my voice must have told her this wasn't the usual game. She lowered herself into the chair slowly, cautiously. My attorney sat beside me. Marisol stood behind us, nervous but resolute. "We're here to discuss what happened yesterday," I began. My ex-wife crossed her legs. "Oh, good. I was going to call you about that. Your maid is incompetent and—" "Stop," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? We're not doing your version of the story today." I placed the printed transcripts on the table. "Here are the time logs from the baby monitor." Another paper. "Here's the timeline of calls between you and the nanny." Another. "Here's the photo of the bruise." Another. "Here's the nanny's resignation." though she didn't realize she left a written complaint behind in the kitchen trash. My ex-wife stiffened but stayed quiet. Then I opened my laptop, pressed play, and let Marisol's recording do the talking. Every word, every threat, every manipulative line. When the video ended, my ex-wife was pale, white as tile. "That's out of context," she said weakly. "No," I said. "That is the context. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You endangered our children for leverage. You used my trust to put them in harm's way. And you tried to frame someone who was protecting them." She looked at Marisol with hatred sharp enough to cut. My attorney cleared his throat. "We'll be submitting this evidence to the court today. I'm requesting an emergency modification to the custody agreement, effective immediately." My ex-wife stood abruptly. "You think you're going to take my kids?" "No," I said coldly. "I'm going to protect them." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "You won't win. I have connections." "Not anymore," I said. "Not after this." For a moment she looked like she might fight, scream, claw at the air. But then she realized she was outnumbered, not by people but by truth. She stormed out of the room so fast the front door slammed behind her. Silence filled the space she left behind. My attorney exhaled. "This is strong, very strong. You'll get the modification, possibly full custody." I nodded slowly. When he left, I turned to Marisol. She was wiping the corners of her eyes again, even though she wasn't the one who had been confronted. "I'm sorry you had to watch that," she said quietly. "You're the reason my kids are safe today," I said. "You shouldn't apologize for anything." She shook her head. "I didn't want to destroy anything. Families shouldn't break." "Families don't break because of truth," I said gently. "They break because of lies." She looked at the ground, absorbing that. "Marisol," I continued, "I want you to stay." Her eyes lifted sharply. "What?" "As their caregiver, as someone I trust. I'll increase your salary. I'll ensure you're protected legally, whatever you need." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "And not just because of what happened, because of who you've been every day since you walked through that door." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes." She laughed, a soft, disbelieving sound. Then she nodded. "Yes." The triplets toddled into the room then, still sleepy, still clinging to each other. When they saw Marisol, they ran to her instantly. She knelt, opening her arms, and they crashed into her like she was home. Maybe she was. Maybe she had been from the beginning. As I watched them, something warm and painful and beautiful filled my chest. For the first time in years, I felt like the father I promised myself I'd become. I crouched beside them, pulling my children close, and looked at the woman who had cared for them when no one else was watching. "I won't fail them again," I murmured. "Not ever." She smiled softly. "You won't." And in that moment, in that quiet room in Scottsdale, surrounded by the only people who truly mattered, I realized something simple and powerful. Money can build a house, but only truth can build a home. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew that life had given me a second chance, one I didn't deserve, but one I wasn't going to waste. If you're watching this, take care of the people who take care of you. Notice those who are invisible. Protect what really matters before it's gone. And tell me in the comments, have you ever trusted the wrong person and almost lost something priceless?